that somehow...
Ever wonder what goes on behind the scenes of a top radio talk show? Well, we'll take you into the studios of Outspoken talker Michael Smerconish right now on It's Your Call.
Moderate is to be a sign of weakness. If you're not all lockstep on the left or lockstep on the right, you are a weakling in the middle, getting sand kicked in your face by Charles Atlas. It's directly in line with...
That is Michael Smerconish on an average morning in the studios of 1210 AM, The Big Talker. And he is and has been a big talker himself for about the last 20 years. First on radio and in recent years on cable talk shows, including this one. He literally worked his way up the radio ladder of success. He started as a weekend fill-in host, and he is now in the coveted position of being a morning drive time staple. Michael is also a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News, and along the way he's had more than a few memorable moments. He's had some out-of-body experiences, and quite frankly, I think he's had some on-air gaffes as well. Michael recounts all of them in his latest book. It's called Morning Drive, Things I Wish I Knew Before I Started Talking. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love the cover of this book. It's one of his own choosing. Hello, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle, joined this half hour by commentator and best-selling author Michael Smerconish himself. It's great to have you back, and congratulations on the new book.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm glad you love the cover, because I fought for that cover. I desperately wanted that cover, and the publisher initially was like, we're not so sure. And I said, no, it's got to be this cover.
Now, we have to explain to people who might not understand the cover. In the television news business, we often are seen from the chest up.
Right.
We don't know what's going on, like a judge underneath the table, and
Correct.
I'm just going to check everybody just for the fun of it.
No, I'm wearing pants.
He has pants on.
I'm wearing pants.
A lot of times we have actually done shows where gentlemen and ladies will have a blazer on and be in shorts or jeans or sneakers, whatever. So for people who are not in the television business, that's a little behind the scenes trivia.
I also wanted to undress the business a little bit. So, you know, there's a maybe not too subtle thing going on there as well, but for all those reasons, I wanted it.
Now, we have asked our viewers to weigh in here with some questions for you, because typically you're the one asking the questions.
Right.
This half hour, we're going to ask some questions of you, and the first one comes right from Facebook, and it says, what is the motivation for writing this book? I certainly know after September 11th, your motivation for the first one. Your close relationship with Maureen Faulkner prompted you to write about Mumia Abu-Jamal and his murder of Danny Faulkner. What motivated you to write this one?
Well, for a long time, I love stories. I'm like you in that, you know, you book people on your show if there's a great story about any aspect of life. And that's the same way that I've tried to run my radio program. I am a sucker for a great story, and it doesn't have to be a front page story. I've wanted to tell stories about the business, about some funny things that have happened to me along the way, some not so funny things, memorable shows, you're right, the gaffes, because I've made some beauties. And the publisher came to me in the aftermath of my last book, and they said, we want from you a political manifesto. We want you on the issues, you on stem cell research, global warming, illegal immigration, the hunt for bin Laden. And I said, well, I'll give you what you're looking for if we can wrap it in a talk radio memoir. And I hope that I've been able to pull off both, because, as you know, I alternate between a substantive chapter and a chapter about the business. So some funny stories and some serious stuff.
I have to say I enjoyed it, not just because I'm in the business and have followed many of these stories throughout my own career, but just because the way in which you told the stories, and you were very self-deprecating in places and admitted that there were times that, you know, it didn't quite necessarily go the way that you want. And that happens to any of us. If you're going to spend all of these hours on live television or radio, eventually along the way, you're going to put your foot in it.
Oh yeah, stuff happens.
And I enjoyed you putting your foot in it, because you don't do it all that often.
Oh no, I do it that often. Believe me, I do.
I love the title too. Things I wish I knew before I started talking. Give me an example of taking a look back at your career and saying, okay, here's an example of something that I did or said that I wish I hadn't, or I wish I knew about before I did it.
Well, a great example, I think, is that I used to equate blinking phone lines with good programming. If the lines were ringing, I thought I must be doing something right. This must be a compelling talk radio program. And then, Lynn, I realized I could open up my mouth and say the word abortion. I could say gun control, and every line's going to light. Doesn't mean it's all that compelling. Frankly, I might be bored as the host of that show. And then things would happen in my real life that I would begin to discuss on radio, and that didn't come naturally to me. And I found that if I were out and about, gassing up my car, grocery shopping, back to school night, people weren't stopping me to talk about substantive front page issues. They were asking about those lifestyle issues. The best example, I think, is how our then 8-year-old daughter went away to camp. And she went away to camp and she wrote a whole slew of letters and she wanted to come home from camp. And I read them on the air. And women called and they were appalled that I'd shared them. She wanted to come home is the reason she was writing to us. And then women would say, go get her from camp. And then guys would call and they would say, leave her there, let her tough it out or she'll be scarred. That was great talk radio, better than abortion or guns.
Do you find, though, that you're somewhat hesitant to share what few private moments you have in your life with your audiences?
Less so. I found that when I didn't realize it, but when I was both practicing law and hosting a radio program, I think that subconsciously I was always mindful of the fact that tomorrow I'll have to be in front of a jury or in front of a judge or in front of clients. And I don't want to discuss something about which I would be embarrassed. And there were a lot of subjects that were taboo. Sex was one of them. A great sex survey comes up now. I'm into it. I'll talk about it. I would never have done that before. I wish I'd known that.
You did say that you're into it and not in the survey itself.
Correct.
Right? I just want to make sure
I'm still waiting for that
correctly.
pollster to call me. But that's an example of the sort of thing, I'm not going to talk about that. Why not? That's what people are interested in.
Well, you know, it's interesting because on this program, I have always been the moderator, and people at home always ask me about my opinion. And I say, well, in this format, my opinion doesn't really matter. You know me off camera, and you know I have an opinion on pretty much anything, and I'll tell you what it is.
Right.
But I didn't find this format to be the venue for that. You, on the other hand, it's all about your opinion. Your opinion drives the callers. They either agree with you or they want to call and disagree with you.
True.
What is the role of people on cable television now, in your opinion? Is it to be more the moderator like me, or, as we're seeing, more of the commentator like you?
It's more the commentator, and what I find objectionable, and never had it happen to me here in my many, many appearances on your program, was the artificial staging of the debate. This notion that you're going to come on the program now, you're going to be the right-wing guy, and this is going to be the left-wing guy, and you're going to duke it out, and we hope you're going to say this, the extensive pre-interviews to make sure that you're going to play a role that's almost out of central casting. And what I argue in the book is that I think the harmful effect is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Lynn, I don't meet people in my real life who are all conservative or all liberal, all Republican, all life is a mixed bag. And yet the people on television who seem frankly to thrive, or in my business of talk radio, they're the ideologues. And I think that then the politicians start to emulate them, and that's just not the way it is.
Well, that's interesting because you approach that in the book, and you say that you've found yourself changing over time, that you don't feel 100% the same as the right-wing conservative might feel, but then you also still have some of your conservative views when it comes to other issues that the Democrats, for example, would be advocating. So is that a result of maturity, or have you just
Some would say immaturity.
Have you just changed the way you think?
I think I've shifted to the left, where most people, as they get older, shift to the right. But let me give you a practical application of this. I was booked on Larry King's program 6 months ago, Larry King Live, and we did an exhaustive pre-interview. I was going to talk politics, and just before the producer hung up the phone, she said to me, now, we'll be introducing you as a conservative supporter of John McCain. And I said, well, okay, but I'm neither of those. And I then explained briefly my political views and background and how I viewed the presidential race at the time. Well, I almost lost that appearance because that just didn't fit into the central casting role that they'd prescribed for me.
And it's probably easier for them to fill that role as opposed to changing the whole format of the show or the way that they intended for that segment to appear.
Yes.